Hello everybody, how's it going? Glowplasma231 here, and today I'm here and I want to talk about Tenmaku Cinema Chapter 8. Who would have thought? It's Tenmaku Cinema Chapter 8. Now, this chapter is titled One Line Stage Direction, sort of a really simple title that really comes to full view in this chapter itself. And before we get into the actual chapter being reviewed, there's just a few things I want to say and note before we get into the chapter itself. Now, first off is thank you everybody who clicked on this video and wanted to watch my views on Tenmaku Cinema. We got a few others in the series like this, so if you're not caught up on all of those, I'll leave those in the description so you can check them out there. And in other news, what happened last time on Tenmaku Cinema? We had the initial filming of scenes of the shore at the school. Of course, it was mainly just focused on Karai and learning everybody else's sort of abilities and what they contribute to making the movie as a team. And then at the end of the chapter 8, filmed almost all of the scenes, but Hajime had an idea that he sort of wanted to fulfill, and they are doing that at the beginning of this chapter, in which Hajime and Bito stole a cart, and they are going through to end up filming this movie for good here. So pretty much, we start off this chapter with all of the students sort of walking into the school courtyard, right? And we see that our sort of three people down here on the ground. We've got Kurai, we have Bito, and we also have Hajime, as they're all sitting here and getting ready to walk out into the crowd, as we see Kurai sort of starts to walk out and sort of start to interact with everybody. But before we get that, we sort of go to a flashback, as all of the gang are just like, Hajime, what did you just say? As Hajime sort of just says, I want Nagisa's character to make a strong impression on the viewers from the very beginning. So I want her to film with other students going to the school, and we can cut to their expression to see just how great sort of Nagisa is. Of course, this is because Karai is such a famous actor in the school, but it's giving that illusion of pretty much how great she is. And we sort of just get a really cool panel of Hajime sort of holding up his fist here, being like, I want those additional shots, as everybody sort of just freaks out and is just like, oh my goodness, are you serious, Hajime, right? And everybody brings up some very valid criticism, as Akisu specifically is just like, but here's the thing, if we do that, then everybody will find out that we're making an independent film, and isn't that why we came when nobody else was at the school? Shino is just like, yeah, the students, teacher, and the staff will all find out, and Bito brings up the point is, that's why they filmed at the school, and that they may not be able to continue filming anymore, right? And we see that while everybody's doing these criticisms, Hajime isn't even paying attention, as he's talking over with Karai, and he's just like, hey Karai, how would Nagisa walk in this scene? As they're just going back and forth and talking about all of this, and everybody's just like, I can't believe this is happening, right? But Hajime is just like, I have an idea, and I'll explain where everyone will be situated, so when I give the signal, it'll be ready and go. As we see, of course, Karai had just gotten that signal, and she's sort of starting to walk out into the crowd and sort of turns on her Nagisa mode as she walks out, and everybody sort of notices. She walks up to a group of girls first, and they're just like, oh my goodness, it's Himeki, oh my gosh, she has her hair down, it's so cute, right? And one of them even mentions like, so no car today, right? As she just walks up and just like, hey, good morning, good morning, good morning, and just talks to everybody, and everybody's just really freaking out. And we see that sort of up in a room, Akisu has a camera looking at everything, and it's sort of them be a shot of everyone paying attention to Karai, as Akisu's filming that. Cam 3 is manned by Shino, and we see that he is at the edge of the front entry. He'll take a wide shot from very far away. But as for Cam 1, we see that Bito is sort of running this cart behind all of the bushes, so Hajime can sort of get a really good view of her walking and sort of just focusing on her as whenever they're through all of the grass shots there, as we just see that they're doing a tracking shot, which is a shot that follows a moving subject in a movie. And they are mainly going for a close-up of Nagisa's expressions throughout the sort of whole ordeal, right? And we see for the ground team here, we see it's Bito, of course, Hajime, and Karai. And Bito is just like a close-up. Wait up, Hajime. If we film a close-up, other people will be shot, and we can't show their paces. We don't have releases and stuff like that. That's not allowed. But Hajime is just like, I can blur the surroundings to a certain extent using the camera mode on my phone. And the other thing is, we can do some stuff in editing too. So it's not a totally big deal now. We can all fix that in post. Anyway, they only have one big shot at doing this correctly here, because if they don't do it now, this scene just isn't going to happen, because it's not like they're going to have multiple shots. This is really a guerrilla style shoot. As Hajime sort of just explained this, he's like, please Beto, we've got to do this, as Beto sort of agrees. And we look as Hajime is getting these shots on his phone, and we sort of see Tenmaku is also sort of looking in at all of this, as we just get some narration just going, interesting. Internally shooting from farther away and using a clip-on telescopic lens on the camera, it makes the depth of the field shallower, so it's easier to amplify the impression of the crowd. And it's just pretty much saying that pretty much because the camera is how it is, it often will shoot wider out, and because of that, we see what's going on with a telescopic and a wide angle shot, as this lens is only getting that telescopic shot, which cuts out most of the people in the situation here. So pretty much only the people in the crowd will be in a frame for an instant, so they're all pretty much basically unidentifiable, which helps out with the not having releases and all of that sort of thing. So they're killing two birds with one stone, pretty much, keeping all of the bystanders out of frame while shooting the movie without anybody noticing. So they're doing most everything right here, is the whole big thing at the end of this. But Hajime sort of keeps saying these is like, but in a telescopic shot, any camera shake has a huge effect on a shot. And he gets a gimbal, and if you don't know what a gimbal is, it's pretty much something to keep the phone right up in pace, so if a bump happens, it should keep itself on track and not sort of jump around and do all that sort of thing to make those bumps really affect it. But he got a gimbal, and it was really cheap, so it only stabilizes horizontally and not vertically, so any vertical motion really screws everything up. Hajime this thing continues saying, I have to keep the frame stable by sheer determination, so as he's doing this, he's holding it as good as he can to make sure. And we sort of see that Beto and him sort of yapping at each other, and with Beto just being like, why'd you have to buy such a cheap one? And Hajime's like, I didn't think we'd be doing really crazy shots like this, so a more expensive one wasn't really worth it. And it's a whole note of where Tamaku's looking in on this, and he's just like, well, they could end up getting worthless shots, or the cheap gimbal in his two arms will really pay off and get a good shot. So they get this entire shot, and they're all looking at it in the camera room later, and it's just a really good shot as we sort of look at all of the camera reels just going through, and Nagisa's expression going through all of this, as Hajime sort of just gets really infatuated with it, and him and Shino end up going head over heels each other, and sort of get stuck behind some bushes, and some people end up noticing and are thinking it's a little weird. But they look at the film, and everybody's just like, oh, that's interesting enough, as we sort of see the actual shot that we just saw in the manga sort of on the iPad screen as they're using, and Hajime's just like, well, I managed to blur out the crowd, but the image quality is so not great, and he's just like, I wanted to go for more of an artistic sort of blur, and he minuses a bunch of points because he's not really a fan of how this ended up, right? And we even get a little joke by Tenmaku being like, I don't really understand how Hajime does the scale of his point deductions, but either way, all of the other guys, Akiso, Beto, and Shino, are just sitting here, and they're looking at the camera, and they're just like, before this, I didn't really realize who Nagisa was, but after this, they understand her so much more from the footage, so it looks like what Hajime did ended up paying off in the end. And they're walking back, and Nagisa walks up to Hajime and says like, hey director, I think I could do that scene a little better. And they're like, hey, can we please do one more take? And the bell's already rung, so they can't do that now. So everybody's going to class and going throughout the day, and they're and Tenmaku and Hajime are in the audio-visual room later within the school day. As Tenmaku is just saying to Hajime, just like, well, this morning was a real adventure. I know I pushed you a bit, but you really took up on some bold risks. And Hajime is just like, I want to make a movie that I'll be proud to show myself when I was a little kid. As we see Hajime and Shinichi are just sort of here. Hajime is Shinichi, but Hajime sort of looks back on his life and is sort of thinking about how he was just sick as a little kid, so he didn't really get to be participating in gym class, and how movies were the one thing that sort of kept him tame and sane in a way. And Hajime is just sitting here now thinking that if he hadn't gone for that shot, that he would have been letting down his movie-loving younger self. And he's just like, or rather, it felt that way. And that's why it's just all of that happened. As we see that Tenmaku looks over at the notepad, and just the whole thing was Nagisa arrives at school. And it was just that one line of stage direction, but what Hajime did was he used it to bring out so much more of Nagisa's charm, and Tenmaku's just like, I'm glad it's you. And Hajime sort of just looking up on this, and Tenmaku sort of gives a really inspiring note of just saying, The Shore is a movie written specifically for Himeki Karaki, but it was maybe also written specifically for director Shinichi, as Hajime sort of like, oh man, Tenmaku, that's really cool, as Karai walks in the room, and just like, hey, sorry I'm late, as we see Shinichi sitting alone in here, and she sort of makes a note of, I thought I heard you having an earnest conversation, so I figured Akatsu and the Arjun were in here too, right? And she just stares at Hajime and says like, talking passionately to yourself. Well, you are in junior high and you're a boy, so maybe it's just a phase. Just a funny joke for that like 7th grader syndrome sort of thing that we've gotten a little bit throughout the series that is sort of happening with Hajime, being that Tenmaku's also around here, right? But Hajime's just like, no, listen, it's not what you think, right? But Karai just sort of is like, don't worry, it doesn't bother me. Besides, it's better to get all the drama out of your system while you're young. And Tenmaku's just really laughing at this. As Hajime's just like, no, it's not like that, right? As to finish out the chapter, sort of just get a little bit of narration saying, Team Shinichi, day 1 of Shoot, completed successfully, if I could talk. So yeah, that's sort of the end of the first day of filming, and this was just a really good chapter, sort of just showing the determination that Hajime has for filming this movie, and in the very end, also showing sort of Karai's determination, and of course, Tenmaku's sort of really wholesome moment of, maybe this was a movie written specifically for you to also film, Hajime. It's just really cool, and in the chapter, funny joke, and I don't really have a whole lot more to say. Like I said, Chapter 9 is already out, so that'll be coming out soon too. So, without further ado, I don't have much else to say, and with that, yeah, this is going to be Glowplasma231 out. And if you are enjoying all of the Tenmaku Cinema videos on this channel, I've got definitely more of them in the description. And if you like other anime manga content, I've got that too. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And yeah, without further ado, this will be Glowplasma231 out.